Welcome again to 720 and 720. Very fortunate to have a good friend, a coaching legend, and what I always thought was the nicest man in college basketball. He went to 10 NCAA tournaments. He went to a Final Four. He's got over 570 wins as an NCAA Division I coach. Let's please welcome Bobby Cremins. Coach Cremins, how you doing?
I'm doing great, John. It's good to hear your voice. We're both not coaching right now, but I always enjoyed our games. College of Charleston against Chattanooga. They were tough games. You got us in that championship game. But I always enjoyed coaching against you. You did a heck of a job.
I didn't enjoy coaching against you. I know that. You were well coached. You had great players. You broke my heart on many occasions. And I talked to my wife about this last night, and I talked to Andrew Wilson about it. We came down to Charleston one time and played. It was a must-win for us. And we had to win. This is old school thinking. We had to win this game at Charleston. We were prepared. We were organized. We came down. We outplayed you. We beat you everywhere except the scoreboard. We missed a free throw with 5 seconds to go. You tie it. We get beaten double overtime. And Andrew Wilson said after that game that y'all had to get together that night, and he said you were kind of down the dumps. And he went, Coach Cremins, what's the problem? And you said, well, I know John really needed to win that game. They deserved to win the game, and I feel bad for him. Coach Cremins, that doesn't happen a whole lot in this business, just to be honest. He also said when we beat you to go to the NCAA tournament, you got on the bus and went, man, I'm so happy for John. He gets to go to the NCAA tournament. That doesn't happen. So once again, when I say you're the nicest man in college basketball, I mean it. You always, and I remember you always said, John, call me Bobby. And I'm not calling you Bobby. I'm calling you Coach Cremins because out of respect, what you did for the game and how you did it. And that's what I want to talk about today, Coach, is there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. And some guys are X and O guys, some guys are this. And I think it's becoming more important how you did it. And you went to a Final Four, and you had unbelievable success at Georgia Tech in an unbelievable league because you did it your way and your relationship skills. Talk to us about, and this is a very informative podcast. We're trying to help young coaches. So talk to young coaches as you're talking to me about what you did and how you had a chance to have all the success you had.
Well, John, first it starts with a few things. First, it starts with the love of the game. And like you, and so many, I had the love of the game. I didn't want to be a coach. I wanted to be a player. But I grew up in New York City, and I was a product of New York schoolyard basketball. And I fell in love with the game early, and I developed a passion for the game of basketball as a player. And that's the next thing. So I had the passion, and then you got to have teachers. You got to have mentors. And my mentor was Frank McGuire. He brought me back as a graduate assistant for South Carolina. And then all of a sudden I had to develop a new passion. I hated giving up the game I loved to play. But that was a smart decision on my part. But I started to fall in love with coaching, the way I found love with playing the game. And it gave me a great, avenue to just continue in the game. And all of a sudden, coaching became really, really important to me. And I developed a passion for coaching like I did for playing. So it starts with having a passion for it. You got to work hard. I've been to so many clinics when I was a young coach, the Bobby Knights, the UB Browns, like you have been. And so, John, in answering your question, I think you got to have a passion for the game. And you got to have good mentors. You got to dig in. You got to learn. You got to go to clinics. You got to work at it just like you did.
Well, but Coach Cremins, I'm going to tell you, you don't have the success that you had at Georgia Tech. I mean, nobody's had that success at Georgia Tech. there's been some really good people, but you had unbelievable success. You have had unbelievable success everywhere. Everybody's an X and O guru. Everybody knows the game. But where I thought you were phenomenal is kind of what you had passion for people. You had passion for me, and I was an opposing coach. You had passion for your players that I don't think other people have, just to be honest. And I think that separated you. Can you talk to us about your thinking there and of your own
Yeah.
players?
Well, John, once I got into coaching, I really felt like my players were an extension of my family. I always felt like a surrogate parent to my players. And I told them that. I said, I know who your real parents are because I recruited you. But I said I felt like I was their stepdad, their surrogate parent. And I told them, I said, we're going to have a family atmosphere here. And I really tried to have a family atmosphere. Now, John, that doesn't mean it was perfect. I mean, I had to kick kids off the team. I had to dismiss players from our program. But I tried to have a family atmosphere. I truly cared about my players. I loved them. I really did love them. Um, and I tried to when they went the wrong way, I tried to correct them. And some we did, and some we didn't, John. So
How did you do that? Think about back at like the College of Charleston. Did you meet with them daily? I mean, I dove into everything that you tried to do, and I heard that you met with your players every day, and you were sincerely interested in their how they were doing in their classes and how they were doing in life. That's where I failed late in my career. That I heard that you were the best in the country at.
yeah, I did. I was not a great student at the University of South Carolina. I regretted that, and I wanted to make sure that they didn't make the mistakes I made. Yeah, I wanted them to do the right things, and I would meet with them. But sometimes, John, I would let them figure it out themselves, and they either figured it out themselves or they didn't make it. I would give them advice, but there's someone, the saying, you could take the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink the water. And a lot of coaches do a lot of things similar, but I truly did care about my players. They were very important to me. When I see my players today, the first thing I look in their eye and I say, did I get the most out of that player? Did he get the most out of his talent? Did I help him get the most out of his talent?
Well, what you've done is taken those kids at Georgia Tech and App and Charleston and become their parents, really. And that's everybody talked about Bobby Cremins and the relationships. Talk to me real quick, and then I'm gonna let you go, Coach. About at Georgia Tech and really at Charleston. You really believed in playing 6 to 7 guys. Is that a philosophy of yours that you could maybe is that stronger than playing 10 guys and maybe trying to help some younger coaches try to figure out how many they want to play?
Yeah, my mentor, Frank McGuire, only played 5 players, John. So, and I used to play like 40 minutes a game. And so it starts with my mentor. And then, John, what I loved about it was everybody knew their role. I didn't have to deal with parents whose sons didn't play. I didn't have to deal with players who would always complain about playing time. But it caught up with me, John, injuries. I had some key injuries at Georgia Tech late in my career, and I did not have the depth that I needed to have a successful program. So what I tell young coaches today, that you got to have some depth. Somehow you got to keep these kids happy who are not playing because I used to hate if somebody complained, John, I used to take, go to another school, get out of here. I wanted chemistry. I wanted great chemistry. But when I went to Charleston, I tried to have more depth, not as much as other people, but I think it's important because the key, number one, they obviously get kids who foul out, but because of injuries, there are so many injuries today that you need to have more depth than I had.
Coach, I think there's so many injuries because, back in the day, you weren't allowed to practice in the summer.
Right, right.
You weren't allowed to take a whole lot of time practicing in the fall. And you know, all coaches want now is more access to their players, and I get that, but also get that you're going to practice them all summer long. You're going to practice them all fall long, and then all of a sudden, by the time you get to November, you're exhausted. The kids are
Yeah,
exhausted. The teams are exhausted, and all of a sudden, you got guys going down. I think last time I checked, most everybody remembers March. And how many teams are ready to play in March? That's why I think Coach K does a great job, because I don't think he kills them. I think like
no,
Rick Byrd at Belmont, I don't think they kill their guys early, and I think they're ready to play in March. I'm not sure Coach K teaches and coaches a lot right now. Hey, big boys, y'all take your L to Gonzaga. We'll figure it out, and we'll start coaching you a little later, and we'll be fresh in March instead of November.
I totally agree with you. You know, I read where Coach K does a lot of film work, and I totally agree with you. I think the coaches now that it's too much work, and the smart coaches know how to make sure they're ready for March.
Well, yeah, you know, you got that time to practice. You can't get outworked. That's what coaches do. We work, and you
Yep,
can't get outworked, so you feel guilty if you're not working. And
that's
so,
right.
you know, but you got to stay fresh, and you got to stay fresh mentally, and you know it, and that's what I think me and you did a poor job of. Just to be honest, is me and you did not stay fresh mentally as coaches. You got to find some time for you as a coach to get away. I just read something on Mark Few turns off his phone and goes and does his own thing and doesn't
Right.
worry about things. If you don't stay fresh mentally and healthy mentally as a basketball coach, it hurts your team. And I think I hurt my team. And I know you
Yep.
got worn down. And
Yes. Yes.
it's easy to get worn down, but I think as a coach, you've got to do some things for you.
No, it's a great point, John. I tell all these young coaches today, take Sunday off. Don't do anything on Sunday. Go to church. Spend time with your family. You know, you really need that day. Shut the phone off. You mentioned Mark Few. He's a good friend of mine, and you're absolutely right about him. He is so balanced, and you got to keep things in perspective. And it's so important that you just don't let this game eat you up. And there were times it ate me up, and as you mentioned, it ate you up, and it's a very very unhealthy situation.
And it's a great and at the you know it's a great thing. You still got relationships with those kids from Appalachian State and from Georgia Tech and from College of Charleston, and they don't remember the W's and L's. They remember the fun times that y'all had, and even the tough times you had. And you laugh
Right.
about it now. You don't think it's funny at the moment, but you can laugh about it now. Hey, Coach, you're a legend. You're going to be a Hall of Famer. You're probably in multiple Hall of Fames right now, but us in the South, we welcome guys from with your kind of accent. And the funny thing is, your guys with your kind of accent, you come down south and you never leave. So that means we got it going on down here because you know you're in Hilton Head. You ain't never going to leave, right?
No, no, I plan on being here, John.
Well, we appreciate Bobby Cremins and appreciate what you did for the game of basketball because you left your legacy and you left your mark and you left it for young kids, for young coaches to know that it's just not about the X's and O's. It's about caring for those kids and relationships that you got and loving those players. And I'm going to tell you, your relationships you have with your kids beat us many, many times. And I thought I was an X and O guru. It stands nothing against relationship with kids because those are the people that play the game. It ain't X and O. It is the Jimmy and the Joes. So Coach Cremins, really appreciate your time, and I thank you for investing in young people.
You're most welcome, John. Enjoy talking with you.